A glance at the episodes, Blossoms of the Savannah, Episode 1, Chapter 1. In Nakuru, Tayo and Razian at the window, discussing, among other issues, their education in Jaton, the extravaganza. On the other hand, in 5 to 7, Ole Kailo Mamilanoi, parking and supervising the family together, and a lot of remembrance of how life has been. Later on, in the minibus, Mamilanoi talks on her own internal or interior monologue about the future and her fears, especially concerning the matter they haven't broached because they've been in town all this while: female genital mutilation. Ole Kailo's thoughts about his gallant entry into Nasilian business community. Later on, he flashbacks about his marriage to Jane Milanoi about 18 years ago. Later on, it is revealed how Kailo dislikes Rejan from the day she was born because he was expecting a baby boy, and how his distaste for her had grown over the years. And then 3, arrival at their Uncle Semiran's compound. The superb welcome and the surprise that the girls encounter and the sense of belonging when they reach the village of Nasilla. Later on, we see Mamilanoi worried about her daughters as they have been branded into Iye, Nemangalana, and circumcised girls. And later on, the fear of rivalry within the polygamous family setup. And Razian chides, in her own words, what happens in Uncle Semiran's home, the many wives and many children, 16 in number. And 4, the girls' new environment, the serenity when they wake up in the morning, the calm, they hear the birds chatter. Later on, they also encounter a discussion on having children and going to study at Egerton University, the chief desire of Rezian, and to be called Dr. Rezian Ole Kailo. Rezian and Tayo are so accosted by a man who calls them uncircumcised. But they fail to report this to their father because they anticipate he will not support them. He would actually chide them. But the mother would accept. In the long run, they do not report what happens to their father. The 5th episode, at his new home, they get there and they're surprised. They're flabbergasted by the excellent home built by their father. And later on, Kailo goes to visit his good old friend, Ole Supeo. And they discuss about business. A flashback on how they used to deal earlier on emerges, and Ole Supeo warns Ole Kailo not to let the man near his daughters says Taba when Ole Kailo tells him he has entrusted the supply of agricultural products from one David Edward Oloisudori Lonkia. Later on, Mamilanoi and the children are within their home, and they talk about the cherished cultural sensibilities. Later on, Russians' resistance against FGM, which Tayo welcomes, emerges. Later on, Razian pleads with Tayo to convince their father to allow them to roll in Egerton University. And then Kailo's distaste for Razian again is revealed. Later on, Tayo consoles Razian because the father detests her. And then there's violation of their privacy. They wake up in the morning and they find people in their room. The house is a communal place. People come without having to give an appointment. Later on, episode 6, the homecoming ceremony. During that party, they see togetherness, and the role of elders like Olemushanka is evident, and the traditional demands towards the girls to be circumcised. is also relevant in this particular section. And for the first time, Ole Kailo also has the fear of his daughters facing female genital mutilation. Ole Kailo alludes to the girls' need for education on the cultural demands of the Nasilian society, and he says that their education must begin immediately. Joseph Armat is to be engaged in teaching them before the Emakerere is called. The episode 7, we have the main dilemma of Mama Milanoi. She remembers Minik Enen Koitoi, the Emakerere. Ole Kailo seems to be getting hooked into the Nasilian culture strongly, and the sensibilities of FGM are revealed later on, page 64 onwards. Now, in episode 8, we have the girls visiting the shop of their father, and they see how impressive this shop is. And episode 9, we now see Joseph Armat's visit, and he begins training the girls on song and dance. Ole Kailo, of course, tells his daughters what he expects of them, and directs them that this indeed is their brother. There should be brotherly love and respect towards each other. And later on, it is evident that Razian resists this traditional kind of education, and she only wants to be taught at the university, or to be taught nothing at all. Olarinkoi comes, and his visit to Ole Kailo's home, which is a nuisance, of course, to Razian, is evident. And in chapter 10, in episode 10, we have Yeo Botor's visit, and this is where now we see Razian's outburst, her resistance to traditional beliefs on how women should be treated and what they should do. And then later on, we are told about the origin of female genital mutilation from the Larincon tribe, when the Larincon warriors forced the women to dance in a lewd manner, and they had to give in to their sexual desires. Therefore, they decided to invent female genital mutilation. They know about Makerere and her fight against FGM, and Tayo responds that she must join her in fighting the scourge. In episode 11, Razian is summoned by Mom Milanoi, and she tries to broach about the topic of FGM with her. Razian tells her how degraded and derogatory this right is, and she says that it's a way the men oppress the Nasilian women. In episode 12, Oloisuderi visits. Now, when Oloisuderi comes, Razian meets him, and she expresses her disgust for him. She thinks he's a mannerless old man because he brushes by her breasts. And the man is so proud, he thinks Razian could know her, and when he mentioned his name, David Edward Oloisuderi Lonkia, expects her to respond, but she doesn't. But when she mentions to Ole Kailo that Oloisuderi is here, she evidently sees that Oloisuderi terrifies the father. Later on, Razian thinks about university and flashbacks on the background of Oloisuderi, as they are told by Joseph Armat, how he was a Moran, but later on broke away and became a smuggler, an extortionist, a robber, a poacher, and all manner of things. Razian reports about the discussion about FGM with the mother, and later on Oloisuderi expresses his interest in Razian and Tayo for a friend of his. And on this night, later on, page 106, we see the Ole Kailo's trouble at night. Both mother and father, they are heaving. Milanoi cannot seem to find a solution. But Oloisuderi is coming for their daughters, and both parents are terrified. It is revealed about the sweet justice to protect girls against ill-mannered men, towards page 115 towards 118, and the changes that came into Nasila, the Nasilian river that gives the Nasilian culture its nutrients. Finally, Olekailo and Mama Milanoi agree to Oloisudori's demands. In episode 13, we see the coaching of Parmwat in song and dance, and Tayo is drawn very close to him. Again, he teaches them on the cultural expectation of love towards those who are related, and the Patureishi. Tayo and Joseph admit their love for one another, but the culture does not allow them to continue. Episode 14, Kailo consults over the demands of Oloisudori, and it is evident how Rezian hates Oloisudori. Later on, Rezian attempts to commit suicide and is rescued by Olarinkoi. And in episode 15, the attempted rape after the journey to Olarinkoi's home. In episode 16, the hunt for the rapist begins. Episode 17, Rezian and Tayo are relocated to their uncle's home, where they learned a lot of lessons on self-belonging, how to be selfless, family chores, and many other things. Episode 18, Oloisudori's second visit, where Olekailo compels Rezian to remain at home alone with Oloisudori. Later on, she reacts against Oloisudori and shows her bitterness towards her father. In episode 19, Kailos visits Oloisudori's home. Oloisudori's flamboyant lifestyle is revealed. And in episode 20, Rezian and Oloisudori face off, where the father even plots that they'll kidnap her if she refuses. Rezian fears Oloisudori, and that is shown in that particular episode. Oloisudori's attempts to woo her begin, but they fail. Episode 21, Rezian at the father's shop. She confronts her father and wonders who between Tayo and Mama had told him about Egerton education, but the two don't seem to be on the same page. She storms out of the premises and promises now to get married by Oloisudori. In episode 22, now we see Olarinkoi. He pretends to save Rezian, then takes her on a terrifying journey and abducts her, and then the nurse rescues her, and we encounter Olarinkoi's home and his mother, the promise of circumcision, and Nkoiboni uses Rezian to revenge against Oloisudori and Olekailo. In episode 23, we have Rezian's recovery. She faces early marriage in this particular episode, and miraculously she's saved. Episode 24, the return of Olarinkoi, promising to circumcise her. Rezian now escapes in episode 25, and when she escapes, she goes to Makerere. Rezian meets and starts life with Menik and Nkoitoi, and we see what happens at the ranch, where she's promised to be taken to Egerton University. In the next episode, Tayo arrives at the ranch and there is a reunion. The next episode, we have a farewell party, and then Oloisudori, David Edward Lokia, comes to claim his two girls, where his property is destroyed, but justice is mixed with the mercy when his life is left. That is the Marcelian way. And finally, in the last episode 29, the dream is finally fulfilled when Tayo and Rezian get to Egerton University. That by far is a summary of all the episodes that happen in Blossoms of the Savannah.